Hi, everybody. This is Rose of Sharon, and I'm back again with another book review. This one is called All the Living and the Dead, and it's by Haley Campbell. And unfortunately, it was extremely short, but I found this book absolutely fascinating. I was just completely mesmerized from cover to cover, especially when Haley speaks of her encounter with a death midwife. And I thought, because I remember mom never talked that much about it, but then I hearkened to the fact that she too had delivered some stillbirths herself. She never really discussed it. She discussed my half brothers all the time. I mean, that was nothing out of the ordinary, but when it came to actual stillbirths or babies that would die soon after they were born, that was part of her job in nursing that she just did not speak of. And when Haley talks about the death midwife, it's just such an oxymoron, that title, but there's no other way to put it. And it's just such a stark paradox, and how she wrestled with it, and she had to talk to other people about it, and she had PTSD, and the parents had PTSD, and it's like she said, it's a club that no parent signs up for. And even my mother, she had to deal with that herself when my half brothers were sadly and tragically taken from her. My first half brother had megalocolon, and that just means he had no anal opening, so they had to make one, and that was extremely painful. So I think that his little body just went into shock when he was only 2, so he died on the on the gurney. And I don't know what was going through her head, but I can only imagine. My mother, she had the greatest sorrow that she's ever experienced, and she had so much loss. I cannot believe how much loss my mother had, and just for her to continue like she did. But this is a similar loss. It's on a much grander scale, because the midwife has to deliver either a dead baby or a baby that's about to be dead. And then, of course, there's always the mother's choice. And Victorian era, they had no choice. The child was basically taken from them and just buried or cremated, most likely cremated. And the mother didn't have to deal with loss twice, or according to the doctor. And Haley said this did more harm than good. I thought, well, yeah, sure it did. But just so many different stories here that were just absolutely incredible. And I've spoken to a mortician before, and I like morticians. I know this sounds really weird, but it's like we get along really well. And I would never do this job myself, because I could never. I'm too much of an empath. I'm too sensitive. I don't think I could handle it. I don't have the right type of personality. I'm more into helping living people than those who are no longer with us. And I nearly got into forensics, but I was not intelligent enough to go into forensics. But oh well, maybe that was all for the better. But this book was absolutely incredible, and I recommend it as a reference book for those going into mortuary science and getting involved in whatever capacity that they actually handle death. And it talks about executioners too, which that particular chapter was really enlightening. I can't really say that much else about the book without giving too much away, because I don't want to. But it's splendidly written. It's rough around the edges with a lot of the profanity. It's actually warranted. It's warranted profanity, so it didn't bother me. It was something I expected. I thought, well, yeah, because like I said, I've dealt with morticians, they are very straightforward. They do not cut corners. They do not sugarcoat. They simply don't. They're very honest and um, frank people, and they have to be in their job. But it struck me so interesting, to be honest, when she started talking about things like cryonics. And I remembered Caitlin Doty spoke of that in Walt Disney, and it didn't go into that, but it did talk about Austin Powers and Fry from Futurama waking up into an era where nothing made any sense. Um, but that's all I have to say about All the Living and the Dead. It was a really fantastic book, and it would be great for reference, even if you're not in the field. For someone like me, this is a perfect book because I could always use a reference, even if it isn't something that I don't really think about an awful lot, even though I'm surrounded by it. But it's something I accept. It's more like uh, how Terry Pratchett saw death itself, and I thought, yeah, that's accurate. Actually, I see death more as a friend than an enemy. I used to be more fearful, but fortunately, seeing my dad go through his demise, it actually made me less afraid. Even though, yeah, I'm still afraid of death. Who isn't? But it did help me quite a bit, and it taught me a lot. And Miss Campbell, she writes in such a way that it's very poetic, but it's very methodical and scientific, and she writes everything in layman terms. And for those of us who don't understand what a mortician actually does, she breaks it down like Caitlin. So it's absolutely magnificent. So I cannot recommend it more. It's a perfect book for right now and any time of the year, especially if you're writing about people in the business and you want to know this is what they do and other people that are involved in making death their life's work. But that's basically all I would say. So until next time, live long and prosper. Ciao, Susie.